The day China invades Taiwan, a war game. It is October 5th, 2027, around 2 a.m. in the dead of night. While most of Taiwan is asleep, the Taiwan Strait lights up. Hundreds of ballistic missiles arc through the dark sky. Air bases, radar stations, naval ports, government buildings all hit within the first hour. Simultaneously, thousands of kilometers away, US bases in Japan and Guam take strikes of their own. Runways cratered, aircraft destroyed on the ground before a signal pilot can scramble. By sunrise, the largest military operation since World War II has already reshaped the Pacific. This is not a prediction. It is a war game, a scenario built from the same modeling frameworks used by defense analysts, military planners, and the US Department of Defense itself. And what it reveals about how a Chinese invasion of Taiwan would actually unfold is more sobering than most people realize. Let's run it. First, understand why 2027 specifically. Xi Jinping has staked his entire legacy on resolving what Beijing calls the Taiwan question. The island sits just 87 miles off the Chinese coast, governed independently since 1949, home to a population that overwhelmingly identifies as Taiwanese rather than Chinese, and protected by the most advanced semiconductor industry on the planet. To Beijing, it is unfinished business from a civil war that never formally ended. To the rest of the world, it is the most dangerous flashpoint on Earth. 2027 marks the centennial of the People's Liberation Army. Chinese military planners have spent years calibrating toward that date. US defense analysts call it the Davidson window, the period after which, by most projections, the military balance in the Taiwan Strait tilts so decisively toward China that American intervention becomes prohibitively costly. Beijing's demographic clock is also running. China is aging fast. The pool of military-age men shrinks with every passing year. If Xi is going to move, the window is now. So, in April 2027, a closed session of China's Central Military Commission makes the call. The invasion will happen in October, when weather conditions across the strait are most favorable. What follows is 6 months of disguised preparation, military exercises used as cover, civilian cargo ships quietly mobilized, ammunition stockpiles moved to coastal positions under the pretense of disaster relief drills. By September, US and Taiwanese intelligence know what is coming. The question is no longer whether, it is when. Taiwan does not wait passively. Fighter jets are moved into fortified underground hangars carved into mountains. Naval units leave crowded ports and regroup at sea. Engineers begin mining approaches to key benches and harbors. The United States repositions bombers to Guam, sends additional fighter squads to bases across Japan, and faces its first major strategic dilemma immediately. Where do you put the aircraft carriers? War games run repeatedly by defense think tanks produce a consistent answer. Carriers positioned too close to the Chinese coast are destroyed within the opening days. China's missile arsenal, thousands of ballistic and cruise missiles specifically designed to deny American naval access, can reach any surface ship operating near the strait. So, the USS George Washington and USS Ronald Reagan are positioned in the Philippine Sea, east of the first island chain, outside the range of most Chinese missiles. They become a reserve force rather than a first strike asset. It is the right call. It also means the opening phase of the war belongs almost entirely to submarines and long-range bombers. On October 2nd, Beijing creates the trigger it needs. A staged confrontation near the Kinmen Islands results in 2 Chinese officers killed, immediately amplified by state media as an act of Taiwanese aggression. An ultimatum is issued. Taiwan rejects it. 3 days later, at 2 a.m. on October 5th, the PLA launches. The opening salvo is designed to do one thing: paralyze. Swarms of cheap drones go first, saturating Taiwan's air defense network. Then come the missiles, hundreds of them, hitting air bases, naval ports, radar installations, and government buildings in Taipei simultaneously. The scale reflects lessons Beijing absorbed from watching Russia's failures in Ukraine in 2022. don't give the enemy time to adapt. Hit everything at once. Taiwan suffers devastating losses in the opening hours. Most of its air force is effectively grounded, not because every plane is destroyed, but because runways and taxis are cratered beyond immediate use. Ships that sortie cannot return to bombarded ports for fuel and ammunition. The surviving aircraft are largely trapped in their underground shelters at 2 fortified mountain bases. Only around 75 to 200 planes total are protected there. Simultaneously, US bases in Japan and Guam take coordinated strikes. The results are catastrophic and entirely predictable in hindsight. In the past decade, the United States built exactly 2 hardened aircraft shelters within 1,000 nautical miles of Taiwan. The rest of the aircraft sit exposed on open ramps. Roughly 90% of American air losses in this scenario occur on the ground in the first hours before a single dogfight takes place. At 4 a.m., hundreds of assault helicopters cross the strait at low altitude. Paratroopers drop toward Taoyuan International Airport on Taipei's outskirts. And at dawn, the amphibious assault begins, landing craft and hovercraft pushing toward beaches northwest of Taipei, with a secondary landing near Taichung to split Taiwan's defense attention. The beaches become killing grounds immediately. Taiwanese defenders fire from concealed inland positions. Anti-tank missiles, artillery, mortars. One analysis suggests coastal defense missiles sink portions of the invasion fleet before troops even reach shore. But the armada is vast. Despite the losses, PLA soldiers make landfall. A special forces unit attempts to push up the Tamsui River toward central Taipei to decapitate Taiwan's political leadership. They run into mines and barriers. Up to 80% are killed. The survivors retreat. Taiwan's government remains intact. By the end of day 1, the PLA holds 2 small, costly footholds, one near Taipei, one near Taichung. The invasion has succeeded in landing. It has not succeeded in breaking Taiwan. Now the war becomes a logistics problem. And this is where China's gamble starts to unravel. China's amphibious fleet of actual military landing ships has a lift capacity of around 370,000 tons, nowhere near enough. To compensate, the PLA has mobilized civilian roll-on, roll-off cargo carriers with a combined capacity of 2.4 million tons. These ships are the backbone of the invasion's sustainability. They're also unarmored, slow, and highly visible. US submarines, pre-positioned around the strait, begin hunting them immediately. A single American nuclear attack submarine can sink roughly 2 large landing ships every 3.5 days. A squadron of 4 can put 16 ships out of action in the same period. The math sustained over weeks is devastating to Chinese resupply capacity. Long-range anti-ship missiles fired from bombers and fighter jets add to the toll. The problem is quantity. The US has approximately 450 of its most effective maritime strike missiles, the LRASM, in inventory. That's enough to inflict serious logistical damage. It's not enough to break the invasion alone. Within the first week, that stockpile is gone. The campaign continues with less optimal weapons. Aircraft are forced to operate closer to the fight to use shorter range munitions. Losses climb. The air battle becomes grinding and attritional. China operates from intact mainland bases with short transit times and high sortie rates. The US and Japan fight with degraded infrastructure, damaged runways, and the constant threat of follow-on missile strikes limiting how frequently planes can even take off. By the end of week 2, roughly 30,000 PLA troops are on Taiwan. They hold footholds near Taipei and Taichung. They're fighting approximately 200,000 Taiwanese defenders with a potential mobilization of 2 million reservists still ahead. The offensive toward Taipei stalls in brutal urban combat. City blocks become fortresses. Bridges are blown. Supply lines to the beachheads remain irregular and insufficient. Xi demands a faster resolution. The PLA High Command orders a major push toward the capital. It grinds to a halt within 2 kilometers of the government district. After 1 month of fighting, the scenario reaches its conclusion. China has lost roughly 60% of its transport fleet, 17,000 troops in ground combat, another 15,000 at sea, over 100 large ships, and more than 150 aircraft. The beachheads are holding, but barely sustainable. The offensive is stalled. The US Navy has begun enforcing a distant blockade closing the Strait of Malacca and surrounding sea lanes to Chinese shipping, strangling the economy that funds the entire operation. The United States has lost nearly 450 aircraft, 14 large surface warships, and 4 submarines. Japan has taken similar punishment. Taiwan has paid the heaviest price of all with 20,000 troops, most of its surface fleet, nearly its entire combat air force. The invasion has not succeeded. It has also not failed cleanly. The world is left with Chinese forces dug into 2 urban footholds on a shattered island, a US-China confrontation that has already involved strikes on each other's territory, and a nuclear escalation risk that neither side knows how to safely walk back from. There are no winners in this scenario. There's only the question of who loses less and how far the spiral goes before someone finds an off-ramp. The strategic lesson that emerges from every version of this war game is the same. Logistics decides the outcome. Taiwan's terrain favors the defender. Japan's bases are indispensable. And a failed invasion could destabilize Beijing more severely than never attempting one at all. Which is perhaps why, after running the numbers, China's most powerful weapon in the Taiwan standoff may not be its missiles or its navy. It may simply be patience. If this changed how you think about modern warfare, make sure to subscribe to our channel. It helps more people find this video. And if you thought this was interesting, wait until you see this next.